question, bus, please.
Yes, Mr. Ambassador, you described the state of negotiations about the nuclear industry. Could you do the same about the fighters of Rafale deal?
Well, I think the broad parameters you are aware of, that it is the RFP as was issued, for which we have for which Rafale was then identified, and the discussions have opened up with Rafale. These involve, because some aircraft, the first 18 aircraft are supposed to come from France. After that, gradually we will have greater and greater value addition being undertaken in India. By the time the last of the aircraft rolls off, the 126, 80% of the value addition is supposed to have been done in India. These are hugely complex pieces of equipment. So it is not just the costs, it is technology transfers. We have an offsets policy. How does DASO implement the offsets policy and all the rest of it? So I think this is where the negotiations are, and I think if you want detailed answers to some of this, perhaps the Ministry of Defense might be a more appropriate forum where you could address these to the Defense Ministry. But I think, according to the information that I have, both from the Air Force and the Ministry of Defense, I understand that the negotiations have been proceeding smoothly, and we hope that we will be able to bring them to a satisfactory conclusion.
Rajiv?
My question is to the Ambassador. In context of JNPP, you said, you mentioned the EPR technology. But the EPR technology is both untested and unsold by France. There are already apprehensions being raised about JNPP, about Jetapur going the Enron way, and also whether Jetapur is going to be a guinea pig for the French. Your take.
Well, your EPR is a new technology. There is no doubt about it. There are currently 3 EPR reactors which are being set up. One in China, in Finland, and in France. All 3 are in the process of construction. It is not yet operational, and which is one of the things that also makes EPR currently the latest, the most sophisticated, technologically advanced nuclear power reactor. So I don't think it is fair to say that Jetapur is a guinea pig. I think well before Jetapur comes on stream, the 3 that are already under construction and in different stages of construction would have already come on stream, and I think Jetapur will probably benefit from all the lessons learnt from the other 3 on which work has begun in recent years.
Mr. Venkat Narayan?
Rakesh, the cultural relationship between India and France has been an ongoing process. For more than 50 years, French cinema has influenced Indian cinema, Truffaut and Ray, and that kind of stuff. And the French run 20 cultural centers across India, which is more than anybody else, I suspect. Now, what is the state? 1 or 2 movies belong to Satish Ray. They were misplaced or something happened. I can't remember the details. Are you aware of anything being done about that? And what does the Indian diaspora do to promote relations between the 2 countries? Because I find the French are giving awards to Shivaji Ganeshan, Satish Ray, and now to Amartya Sen tomorrow.
Well, I think that this year, as Ruchi mentioned, is 100 years of Indian cinema. And the French are also extremely excited about it. There are at least over a dozen known film festivals, beginning with Cannes, which is of course the most famous and most well known, which takes place in the month of May. And I have had discussions with the Cannes Film Festival authorities. We started these discussions last year in May. And this year, India will be the special country of honor for the Cannes Film Festival. Not just for Cannes, there are, as I said, there are about a dozen other film festivals. There are some organizers who want to do a special festival of Indian women film directors. There are others who do film festivals for short Indian films, documentaries. So they are doing a special focus section on Indian documentaries in their festival. This is the Clermont-Ferrand Festival. In Deauville, there is another film festival. They are doing a special focus section on Indian films. We recently had a film festival in northeastern France in a place called Vesoul. And there we had Indian films, and wherever we have these Indian films, there's also Indian participation by directors, actors, etc., etc. So I think we are going to see an enormous amount of focus on films. In addition, there will be other cultural events which the different museums in France keep organizing. Like the Musée Guimet, every year they do an Indian summer, which continues over a period of 3.5 months. In Pompidou, Centre Pompidou, we have a set of Indian events that are planned. But in addition to that, as I said, 2013, there will be a lot of focus on Indian cinema and everything that is associated with it, whether it is young filmmakers, women film directors, new Indian cinema, classic Indian cinema, etc., etc. And all of these will find presence in not just in Cannes, but as I said, in over a dozen film festivals in France.
Nilova?
Ambassador, this cooperation, counter-terrorism kind of cooperation that India has sort of started with France in Mali, is this a kind of slightly sort of moving away from the neighborhood? Is this a new sort of phase in counter-terrorism cooperation, as it were, India's commitment, some amount of forces, some amount of money there, and training of Malian forces?
Counter-terrorism is one of the pillars of the strategic partnership between India and France, along with our cooperation in space, defense, and civil nuclear. There are four, when we talk of the India-France strategic partnership, we talk of four important pillars of this. As I said, civilian nuclear energy, defense, space, and counterterrorism. And counterterrorism, and this has been there for a number of years, so it is not something new with Mali or any such thing. And this involves cooperation between the relevant agencies in both countries. There is regular dialogue, there are exchanges of visits, there are exchanges of information. Certain concerns that we have, we share with them. We ask them to help us with whatever information they have. Sometimes they have better capabilities in certain sectors, and so they are open with us. Sitting in the region in which we are, naturally they have certain interests here and concerns, so they ask us in turn, share what they have, and then we see how much more we can add to their store of knowledge, so that we can both develop better capabilities, both collectively as well as individually, to tackle the issue, the scourge of terrorism, which is something which both our countries are strongly committed to fighting against.
Dr. Awad?
Mr. Ambassador, in terms of the relationship between India and France regarding the African continents, India goes for investment and the French goes for the anti-terrorism acts, but still India interest has been a threat. Is there any kind of a serious discussion on these, especially in Sudan? Now we have involvement in Mali, then in Libya. So there is now quite good presence of France in which maybe India would like to assess the situation there.
Well, first of all, I think, yes, India's economic commercial presence in Africa is now growing, as you know, particularly after when Prime Minister had gone and we had the India-Africa summit. And that is exactly what the purpose of the India-Africa summit was, to act as a catalyst to bring about greater Indian economic presence in Africa. France, as you know, as a colonial power, has always had strong economic commercial interests in Africa. So it's not as if France only has counterterrorism interests. Even today, France has very significant economic and commercial interests in Africa. And I'm quite sure that when President Hollande is here, he would certainly take this opportunity to brief us on his assessment, because as you know, he paid a day-long visit to Mali, and the French soldiers are still there. And he would like to brief us, and we would naturally be interested in listening to him. Another area of cooperation that we have, which is also linked to this whole counterterrorism, is also our people have cooperated together in combating piracy at sea. And in this also we have a strong active cooperation between Indian and French authorities.
Naz?
As you said, there are issues regarding costs in the negotiation for EPR supply. So there are reports that the French are demanding 20% over what India wants to pay for these EPRs.
I don't think we are going to resolve these negotiations by discussing percentages like this here. I think we should leave it to the concerned experts on the French and Indian side to work out what is the best possible price and what is the best possible deal.
Last question on this, Tripti.
Some French universities and institutes began to offer overseas students the option of medium of instruction in English because they realized that language was a big barrier. Do you see an increase in the number of Indian students in universities and institutes in France now?
There has been, I can't say a very large increase, but the number of Indian students going to France in the last, let's say, 5 years ago was about 1,700 a year. Today it is about 2,400 a year. I mean, but for Indian students, as you know, the most attractive destinations have always been English-speaking countries rather than other languages. But the French are, as you very rightly said, they are conscious of it, and in some of the, particularly in some of the management schools and so on, now they are also developing courses in English. Some of their best known management schools like HEC, which is a management school, and Sciences Po, which is political, which is social sciences. There also they are running bilingual programs. So there are more and more Indian students that get attracted to Paris or to France. But I think the numbers will probably need to grow much larger as our relationship becomes more, becomes deeper and wider.
I think we've had a fairly extensive briefing on this issue, and we will bring this to a close now. If you give us a minute or so, I will request my colleagues, since they have to attend other meetings, and then I'll come back in case you have anything else that you may like to ask. So just give us a break for a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you.